All right, and welcome to another episode of the Guy in a Basement podcast. And it is episode number 8. With me today is a good friend of mine from my university days. He is a very smart gentleman, a very eclectic person with a lot of different knowledge, which I'd love to pick his brain about. Welcome to the show, Mr. Sam. Hey, how's it going, Sam?
Quarantine, hiding.
There you
hiding
go.
in my house, not leaving it for a couple of months
There
like
you
everyone
go.
else.
There you go. Are you being
I'm rocking
like
the quarantine look.
Me and you both, man.
Mm.
Putting on whatever we can to keep, well, for me to keep warm. I don't know about you. You live in NorCal, so there you go. You have
It got a
temperate
little
weather.
chilly here. It got a little chilly here for Cali people anyway, not for me.
For sure. We, the last 2 days, I think that was Saturday and Sunday, we had, over a single storm, the largest amount of snow in the history of this city where I live. It was 30.8 inches of snow.
Holy shit.
And yesterday our hot
my
water
God.
went out because our starter light is, so we had to call our cousins over. So I had to take a
my
bath.
God.
I had to take a bath by boiling water on the stove with 4 different pots and putting 2 things of hot water from my electric kettle in, and I washed myself with a cup and a washcloth. I was going 1800 style, baby, channeling my inner Oregon frontier, like
Amen.
I'm gonna wash my body once a week kind of deal. It was not good.
Hey, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Exactly. So how are you, man? How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm just chilling,
Nice.
I've been just surviving quarantine,
There you
playing,
go.
having happy hours with friends,
For sure. Man, I wish I had that in the form of people reaching out and saying, hey, do you want to drink online? It's like, yeah, sure. I
You know
wish
what?
I could go to the store to
You can
drink.
join us. Hey, man,
I would love
you
to.
can join us sometime.
I would love to,
I'll tag my buds.
for sure. And of course, we have not only that, but a future episode with a prior guest and Sam in the future. But let's talk of that for now. Let's get started. So, what do you want to talk about first? Should we talk about how we met?
Yeah, let's just do that first.
All right. Just nip it in the bud.
So, yeah, it was in the Japanese religion class.
Yep.
I think you talked to me first. I think it was outside of class or something. I think we were just standing there being bored.
I
and
think
you said
so.
something,
Because
and
I
we
remember,
started
didn't
talking.
you sit behind me? I was like, oh, I've seen this guy sit behind
Yeah,
me.
I
Might as well
think
just talk to
so.
him. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we just started chatting, and then we chatted more outside of class, and then we were like acquaintances for a while with that class, and then
Yeah.
it was in the Japanese samurai class
Yes.
where we
So,
became really close.
yeah, so we had met, I think, my first quarter there at that school. And then I was like, oh, I know that guy from this. and then I sat next to you in that class, and then we really bonded. And of course, when I came back
Yeah.
from Japan the first time, we hung out a lot. So,
Yeah.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah, a lot of interesting nights at Woodstocks.
A lot of interesting nights at Woodstocks and walking back to our prospective apartments,
Oh my
somewhat
god!
drunk, and discussing random stuff.
I think I was the one who was always drunk. You were usually pretty sober.
Well, yeah, that's because I know how to hold my liquor and not to overdrink myself. Listen, when you go to a party and you get drunk by like 1 o'clock before everyone gets there and they keep giving you drinks and no food to eat, you vomit over everything and you feel really bad about it because you can't see your face when it's this close, that's when you learn to stop drinking heavy.
I'm
not joking,
I did
that's-
that during quarantine. That sort of like
Wow.
I was probably the worst night I ever had was during quarantine because there was one night where I just went ham. I had
Right.
like a bottle of wine, a big like not shots but like a cup of vodka.
You had a tankard of
And
vodka.
then like a tankard of vodka and then like a couple of beers, and I was like hungover for 2 days.
Yeah, that's why my limit is like 2 drinks, and then it's just like I feel nice, and I'm not gonna do anything else because
Yeah.
I know I just want to feel nice.
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly.
So, what have you been up to, man? In your quarantining? I know we're living our best we're living our best Hobbit hole lives by staying at home and not going on adventures. So, yeah, I've been watching a lot. I've reading a lot. I've been engaging in a lot of Lord of the Rings Tolkien content recently. So I thought that was a good
My
one.
man. Yeah, Tolkien's dope.
Mm-hmm.
I still need to mount. I got like the like replica prop of a Orcist, and I'm gonna put it on my wall.
Ah,
that
wonderful.
was like, dude, Dude, that sword was what got me into fantasy. So,
that's awesome. You hear that, guys? He's gonna hang up goblin cleaver in his house.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have many goblins to cleave in today's day and age, unless you're a Reddit troll.
If there's any goblins out there, don't feel offended. I'm not gonna cleave you unless you piss me off.
There you go. Oh, we just got our first message. Would you allow me to be your feet rest master? I don't know. That's a very strange request for me to put my feet on you. Would you put your feet up on someone if they asked you to do it? What do you think?
I mean, if they're a friend, yeah.
There you go. You'd have to be our friend for us to exploit your body as a prop. That's what is required in this relationship.
Shit.
There you go. Well, thank you for your question. Continue to watch. Many things will be said. All right, there you go.
Maybe we can get into the history of feet.
There you go. Did you know that the modern foot was created by Africans 4.5 million years ago by the earliest hominids?
Oh my god. Oh. Yeah, diable form.
There you go. There you go. Wow, that is a comment. You're my master, I'm your slave. I'll put my feet down on your feet, master, and we'll watch your stream every day. Damn! This person is thirsty. Thirsty for the feet.
I like it.
It's a heavy feet fetish. It's a heavy feet fetish. Proverbs to you. Thank you for your indolent phrasing. It's very interesting because I consider myself one of the working class. So it's like, whoa, that's a little bourgeois. This isn't 17th century France here. We're not under the Sun King.
We don't got any time for foot fetishes. We're just trying to survive out here, you know?
Yeah, we're trying to survive until the meat halls open up again.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, man. Anyway.
Right before, one last thing before we actually start is I was just talking with a buddy of mine and he randomly asked me, he's like, oh, Sam, is this a good mead? And I was like, fuck, I can't. And I'm like the mead guy now among my friend group. They're like, oh, is this a good mead? I'm like, yeah, it's a good one. I had it in Norway.
Oh, there you go.
Anyway, it's
very
funny.
Chill, man. Speaking of alcohol, I just found there's a brewery in Denver and Fort Collins, just south in Colorado, and throughout the Rockies, they're distributing their canned stuff, and it's called Prost, and it's a German style brewery with all the equipment that's been imported in. And I'm so eager for when the snow is not at my level of. It's above my it's above my knees out here. It's above my knees. And when it melts, I found the place where they stock it in my city, and I'm going there immediately to grab 2 things. Oh my gosh. Anyway, away from alcohol and away from this interesting this interesting person. If you see the chat. If you're reading it, it's like, wow.
We're from SB when the first thing we talk about is alcohol.
Well, that's a given. I mean, my experience is more from avoiding people bringing it out inside of my car while I drive them drunk, as opposed to drinking it. But I have drunk a lot in SB. Yeah. Anyway, so let it be said, both Sam and I majored in history at one of the most premier history-based public education universities in the country, UC Santa Barbara. Party school, but a very good, hard studying school. They party hard and they work hard. It's a balance. There's no time for rest.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get into the topic of history. Just look at the ground and say, slave, let me your master put my face under my face.
You can't.
I feel bad just saying what this person is writing. It's very interesting. Please follow the channel and follow the socials. But oh my goodness, if that will be your metaphorical letting me use your face. I'm reacting to this and just be like, wow, it's interesting. Thank you for following our channel. Anyway, so to history. So
yes,
where should we begin?
The thing that I was thinking about, and I have to get back on my reading because I've been trying to do that during quarantine, but it's difficult. But I've read this book by a guy named Will Durant, and it's called What is History? I've read through this book a couple times, and I really thought about during our time. I don't know. like my entire time in education, I was never asked that question, non K through 12 and non-university,
Right.
and how that's never really discussed. It's kind of not in like an obvious way. You're never like, it's kind of more of this is what historians do,
Right.
like primary source, secondary source, all that.
Right,
but it's never
right.
like we never sit down and go, oh, what are we doing? You know.
All right, quick pause. It is okay. I get it. I know it's a joke. I completely understand. I'm throwing on to the joke. Anyway, back to your thing about the book.
Anyway, but I was thinking about like, I guess I'll ask you before I say it. Well,
Right.
how would you define history? Because I have a definition in my head, but
history is the study of the past through the use of documents and analyzing that to understand the way of life of people in the past and how that relates to us in the present. Because that's why we want to utilize history in a way that it progresses society and makes it actually relevant. But that's my definition.
Yeah. See, I agree with that one, but I think that if we're getting like real deep, like real deep, it's more like something like the interaction between the historian, the society where the historian comes from, and the sources. You know, that's really what it is.
Oh, for sure.
Because it's kind of like that whole relationship.
Right.
That's your definition is like a simpler, kind of easier one. But I think really history is like this weird thing. Because, you know, there's definitely professors we had, there was, you know, they would talk about how they weren't sure whether history should be put in the humanities or social science. Because it's in a bit of a strange place.
I would honestly say it fits in both.
Yeah.
I would say it fits in both.
Yeah.
Just no question. It's a broad topic of discussion.
I think that the methodology of it too. Sorry, just got.
Yeah, no worries.
One thing here. There we go. But the methodology of history is that I think in the public like eye, it's presented as this guy like looking at an old book and going, "Oh, this says this, so this happened," and it's, you know, it's like so factual and like, "Oh, I am looking through this through unbiased eyes," you know. When it's more of, you know, of someone going, "I am very biased. I think this of this source." Another person, "I think this of this source." Another person, "You're both wrong. I'm right," and then yelling at each other about it. So it's you know, it's about more about interpretation, rather than facts.
I think that's appropriate, you know, because you can't rid yourself of bias. Even when you try and be the most unbiased person, you're a human being. You can't unbias yourself, which is a strange description of it,
it's just
but like
not possible.
It's true. So yeah, there you go. That's wonderful. I like that. I like that definition. And I like
because it's like. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just like going to say, it's like I think the way you described it of like the three guys claiming that my interpretation's right versus like my interpretation is like both of you are idiots because my way is right because this is what I found.
Yeah.
It's very guys. Historians are like some of the pettiest fucking scholastic people you'll ever meet.
It's so true. Oh my god. Yo. So. Oh my god. I went to a academic like conference in Norway, and oh my god, some of the critiques that people gave each other, I'm like, that's the pettiest shit I've ever seen. Oh my god.
Your use of the Oxford comma means that your interpretation of this changes.
Yeah, exactly.
Put it in. It's like, what the fuck? That's like basic errors of grammar, and that's the thing you're going to argue about, or something along those lines. That's very historian-esque.
But I'm always thinking about, you know, the popular perception of how it's so factual, and it's like really 99% of the work that historians do is like interpretation, and facts are more of like I would describe them as like the primordial soup. Right. We do argue about them, but that isn't really like the main thrust of what historians are trying to do.
Yes.
And if it were just about facts, it would be pretty boring, I think.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, that's why I think it's important.
What makes it so interesting? Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say.
Go ahead.
I completely agree. It's like, if you're just looking at the facts, yes, it's boring. But if you apply it to what's happening now and the leading up of events to the current present, that's where it's a very engaging topic of something to study.
Yeah. I think it's with having it be about interpretation also makes it so that it's a very fluid kind of area, because it makes it so that we study things like historiography, you know, the study of history. How did people view, you know, this period, this then, and then this period and yeah. So how do people view history throughout time?
Right.
Because that's always, I feel like that's an underexplored area, at least in K through 12. It's like, did we ever talk about historical interpretations during that time? Not really. And that's where a lot of the interesting stuff is.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, back in the past, I mean, what was history but, like, the mythologization of, like, this is why the order is the way it is. I mean, like, Romans, for example, it's like, we descend from Aeneas, and, like, he came over here, he fucked over Carthage, so that's why we don't really like Carthage. Or also, we're a city of warriors because, like, our guys who created our city, Romulus and Remus, one of them killed the other.
Yeah.
Also, their mother was a she-wolf, which was code in Latin for a whore. Let it be said. Because, let's be honest, Rome was the bastard child of the Hellenistic world.
True.
Then they're like, hey, this is some cool shit. I'm going to change the name of it, though, and adapt it for me. But yeah, there we go.
It was basically the bastard child who kills the parents and then takes over the kingdom.
Pretty much. And then they're like, wow, this north place is really fucking cool. Oh, this west place is really fucking cool. Oh, this south place is really fucking cool. Oh, I like this Egypt place.
Yeah.
Pyramids are cool. Are you Persian? Fuck off. Are you German? Fuck off, but don't fuck me.
And then the Germans took over, and everything went to shit. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Hey.
I'm kidding.
We're both probably descended of Frankish and Germanic
I
stock.
definitely am.
Oh, no question.
My middle name is literally German, so.
Dude, my last name is literally, I don't know, something Germanic. I don't know, fucking. It's been anglicized, which means it got turned Germanic.
But, I was thinking about, like, to go back to what I was saying, like with the what of history, I think that's one of the few areas in my education that I felt I had to kind of fill in. And I see this in professors and stuff. Like, I saw this a lot more in Norway than I did in the States. I think that people, at least our professors we had, a lot of them were a lot better about asking these sorts of questions. But I think that one of the issues academia faces is a lack of a philosophy of history, where it's like, what are we doing?
Right.
It's not something that's discussed at the conferences. It's just
like, why do we?
And then I think this. Yeah. Like, that's actually where I was going to head next, is why. And this is one of the reasons I want to do public history and not academic history, is I see a lot of, like, I have a friend who's studying at Cambridge. Wow. And she's doing her master's on, like, magical plants.
Oh, that's such a cool topic. Oh my gosh.
I know. It's very cool in, like, Norse mythology and Celtic mythology, and compare them.
There you go.
She's crazy smart, and she won a paper contest there. But anyway, it's like, that's a really cool topic, but I'm like, but how useful is it? And I see that a lot with, like, academic papers where it's just so obscure. I'm like, how is this useful? What is the point of doing this?
I mean,
and that's why I don't want to do academia.
Right.
In the end of the day, is I just think it becomes, just kind of doing it for the sake of, this is cool, which is great and all, but
it doesn't help society.
I want history to be useful for society, not just as a fun intellectual practice. Which, nothing wrong with that, but just personally, I kind of get annoyed with that.
Right.
And I mean, partly it's due to just issues with academia, which I'm sure a bunch of people in academia would agree that it has issues with.
There you go. Academia, and people don't like to think about this in the form of, like, intelligence, but academia is a very conservative environment, and they stick to their ways pretty damn hard. I mean, like, for all the rigmarole and rhetoric of, like, maybe one would say, like, conservatives about, like, university, especially in the United States in general, it's like, oh, they're teaching people that these things. It's like, no. They probably have more in common with you in their, like, actual practice. Fox News and, like, a liberal coast university probably have a lot more in practice. And, like, this is the way it's done, and we have to do it this way.
Yeah, exactly.
More so.
Yeah, there's no wiggle room at all. None at all.
But I think anecdotally, some of that stuff, like your friend's topic of magic herbology, I think that would be a great way of describing it. That's
a good way to describe it. I like that.
Yeah, magical herbology is Listen, there's a lot of the recent rise in non-traditional paganistic religion would probably go fucking bananas over that. I mean,
it's true. That's true.
Look at Wicca. They'd probably be like, their brains would explode. It's like, oh fuck, teach me, teacher. Make a book that can be purchased that's not $50 from an Oxford publishing house.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Is I think that one of like, other than just the obscure issue I brought up where it's like things are so obscure, is it useful? Right. That's less of an issue than costs of getting access to academia, because I think it's there are a lot of professors who go out and they do lectures and they put them on YouTube and they try and put out some public information, but so much of what is written in academia or talked about is just hidden behind this ridiculous paywall. Mm-hmm. It was actually really interesting because there was a big hubbub at the University of Oslo, where I studied abroad for a year, where they actually their databases got a lot smaller because the university refused to pay for databases because they said that it shouldn't be hidden behind this paywall.
Right.
So it made studying a lot harder because we would go to the library and it's like they wouldn't have any sources for us. But it was it's such a huge issue with transferring, like in a perfect world in my mind, academia would be like the people who are like, okay, here's the information, here's our best interpretation, and then it gets passed down to like public history people who are like, okay, here's what we think, and it gets public history people in like education higher ups and these sorts of things, and then it gets passed down to teachers.
Right.
They're become that pipeline sort of.
Kind of like, right now it's like kind of like a trickle down economics version of education. As weird as that is to say,
better than that.
I mean, if it actually worked, that it would sound nice. But there you go.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm of the opinion that like free source anything and just like clear access is the most important thing. I mean, I'm kind of have like a Wikipedia-esque file to it, excluding the fact that you can edit all that shit out. Like, this is the proper stuff.
Yeah. I wonder sometimes if there should be, I don't know, some sort of like government program, some sort of funding to allow that, because the issue is just the money, right? So because academics,
well, yeah, it's like
there's all these.
Go ahead.
All these corporate, groups who are controlling these journals and things.
Yeah, it's so funny you bring that up, because I literally saw an article described. I was watching a video on like access to education, because like I have so much free time being an unemployed, self-employed person who's like waiting to get a second dose of vaccine so he can actually get a job.
I know that feel.
I just got my first dose last Monday. Not this Monday, but the prior one. Back to my topic I was discussing. And it said, like, here's a great example. It's like, why education needs to lose its paywall. And guess what the article is behind? A $15 paywall for the fucking paper that describes it. Have you seen this?
I saw that, yeah.
It's the perfect example of, like, the hypocrisy of it.
Yeah.
It's really bad.
It's terrible. I mean, to be fair, because we're kind of batting on academia a lot, there's a lot of people in academia right now who are, trying their best to work against this. I think, the first person that comes to my mind who was kind of seemed pretty scornful of a lot of that stuff was Roberts, who was one of our professors.
So we are talking about Professor Luke Roberts, who is a scholar of Japanese history, more so over Edo period Japan and governmental policy in the Tosa domain. Mm-hmm. The only reason I know that is because he's been referenced multiple times in a Japanese history podcast that I listened to out of the University of Hawaii.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah.
There you go.
Great professor.
A wonderful guy. Really cool.
Oh yes, but it's then some other members who were of academia who've been pretty scornful of that, or kind of talk about these problems with us, and they're like, I hate it.
That's
and are really frustrated. Like I remember actually, this is actually kind of related. I had a philosophy professor in Norway. I failed that course horribly, but he was a great professor. I was just done with school.
Right.
But,
you're just like, fuck, I'm tired.
Bye, professor.
Yeah.
It was my last semester of college. I was exhausted. I was in another country. I was tired. And he talked with me about how he was literally going to try and do classes that taught people how to write, like master students. Because he's like, the thing with academia is they can't write for shit. I'm like, it's true. anyone who's read an academic novel knows our pain. The academics cannot write for shit.
Guys,
it's like if you find an academic article that's well written, it's like finding gold in a pile of shit.
It's really bad. If an academic paper was a type of food, it would be like a saltine where they took a machine that sucks out moisture and it was the driest thing ever. So you put it in your mouth and then your entire body puckers in on itself.
Oh God.
I think that's a wonderful idea to teach academic people how to write interestingly. That's actually my favorite thing. Because I'm a fair writer. I've been told it's like, you actually have digestible historical content. People can read your shit and not be like, I want to hang myself because I'm tired of reading this.
I've been told that too, actually. I think it's for me because, as Nick knows, I'm very passionate.
Yes, he is.
I can control myself. I'm so passionate.
It depends on the topic, but yes.
It's true. But it comes through in my writing. But it's, that's something I would like to see change more than anything is just the paywalls and the writing.
Right.
Though I have to say, some of the stuff we read in university was good. Like, you remember the textbook, I say in quotes, that Roberts used, where it was the intro and then a source and then a conclusion where it would like talk about the story. Yeah. That was the best textbook. Yeah.
Right.
That was the best textbook I ever had.
I'm trying to think of
that wasn't.
What class was that? Was that the samurai class or was that the early modern class?
I think that was the early modern class.
Okay. Because I agree. That was a good, the resource textbook, but it was like, here's an explanation, here's the document, and here's our conclusion about what it means. And it's like, that's not a bad way to approach historical writing.
It's really not. And I mean, it's like, this is the other thing I see a lot of people misunderstand with history, where it's like, talking about interpretation, it's like 99% of what you study in history is just reading primary sources.
Yes.
That's like literally the entire bachelor's is just, here's a primary source.
All right, now pretty much before we continue, we have to explain to the layman what a primary source is. So a primary source is a document that has been written from the period you're studying. For example, in 500 years, a tax catalog of all your purchases is a primary document to see how life actually operated and what people bought right now. So there you go. It can be as mundane as that, or it can be fucking Ovid's fucking Metamorphosis. That could be a primary document for like Roman propaganda. So guys, it's a wide fucking range. It's when you get into secondary and tertiary documents that it becomes, what is your analysis? What do you think? Oh, I read this article, and then that made me think about this, and then I used that, and I'm a professor.
Yes. Indeed.
So, I was written in the Cambridge publication house. It was quite good.
Oh, God. Now you're just reminding me of my friend who goes to
Cambridge. Yes, that's why I brought it up. She's living in jolly old England, which means she's living in her flat.
Period. Yeah, she is.
There's a lockdown.
She's having a good time. But
yes.
Yeah, this kind of talking about sources. I think something I would like to see more with education in college is more of. This is kind of a difficult thing, but more of handling actual sources, if we could. Like in the modern class, Robert, our professor, our early modern Japan, course, Robert showed us like actual Edo period, like I think they were like magazines equivalent of. I don't remember exactly.
Right.
But getting to handle them and this sort of thing, that it brings it so much more alive. Rather than I would like to see more.
Like,
even if they're just copies or replicas made from like similar materials, like I would like to see universities like kind of come together like for the history programs and go, okay, let's create resources for this, and this,
Right. Like, could you imagine taking a class on like, I don't know, let's say like Norse mythology, for example, and like they brought a replica copy of the Codex Regius and you got to hold it and scroll through and see the writing? I think you probably fucking lose your fucking you just lose your
Oh
mind.
my God. See, I actually I don't remember if I've ever actually told you about this. I don't know how I haven't, but one of the probably the best course I ever took education wise was actually an archaeology course. And I got to handle real archaeological objects from everywhere from like, not the Stone Age, excuse me, but, very early on in the Bronze Age to the Viking Age. And I got, I bajillion pictures on my phone, but it was literally the coolest course I've taken in my life. It was fun. It was interesting. Everybody got into it. That's the thing. Even people who didn't like that type of period, who were just like, don't like history, don't like archaeology, you're just holding the stuff, and it's just so damn cool. It gets everyone interested and paying attention.
There's like a feeling of, fuck, this thing has seen shit. It's like looking at an old guy who fucking fought in World War. It's like, that guy saw shit. That's an object that has lived multiple lifetimes and just continued to exist.
Yeah.
So that's, I agree. I think one of the most I think one of the greatest cross sections that we don't see, like that could be wonderful, is what's the overarching term? Anthropology. And anthropology has 4 parts, being biological anthropology, sociology, which is study of Western culture, cultural anthropology, and then archaeology. And mixing that with history is fucking interesting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
This kind of goes actually into the next kind of thing I was thinking of, where with history, because I worked at a daycare, for like almost a year, and then I left because I was being driven insane by children. So I don't like them.
Children are difficult. I understand. Trust me, dude. It's fine.
That's not true. They just drive me nuts. But I left. But the thing I saw with the kids is like, school-wise, they never mention history. And why is that? Because history is goddamn boring from K through 12. Yeah. And then my experience, and this is, I think you would agree, and pretty much every other person I know who studied history in college has been like, yeah, everyone who didn't like history in the younger, now everyone wants to take history courses.
Yep.
Because universities teach them a lot better.
Yeah.
Not always, but there are certain history professors who are very popular.
I feel like history is like an example of a field where like all the best people do end up at the top level, or like they go out and they do work for maybe companies. And all like the lackluster folks are the ones that kind of like, all right, I've been at this job for 20 years. I don't really give a fuck about the topic anymore. Here's like 7 rote facts that are on a fucking exam.
I think it's that, and that, I just think society in general doesn't value history. Like, what's respected right now in society? Science. That's what's respected.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, there's no history version of Neil deGrasse Tyson, to put it, in one way.
Yeah.
There's no one like that.
Well, I think
so. It's and then go ahead.
I think like we're seeing a shift though, in like
slowly.
Slowly, yeah, but sure. Like if you notice, like on the internet, there's this massive following of professors that are, as you said, taking their content online, but they're using it like podcasting resource. A great example, and I think, and you know him, Dr. Matthias Nordvig. He has his the Nordic mythology podcast with Daniel Farron. I listen to that shit every week because
he's great.
When I got back to America, Jackson Crawford's wonderful. Both of them, they live in where I live, like an hour away from these people because I live in the Rockies.
Oh my! I'm
fucking
jealous.
That's what I'm saying. It's like there's a possibility. He wants to go to Fort Collins, and I'm planning on moving there. I could fucking visit this guy in a couple of months if he gets his job from Boulder.
You froze up for a second there, Nick.
What?
You're good.
Okay, it was just like frozen for a little bit. Okay. Anyway, so my point being this is that this use of technology and like social media and like edutainment, I think that's the thing because, boring classes aside, I fucking love like extra credits, history stuff. I love fucking these independent podcasts and getting these professionals on. It's just, that's the in. And the problem is that it's not, history is not a marketable subject. Science is a marketable subject because that shit makes money because it makes products to sell. You can't sell fucking what did the Vikings do when they engaged with the Anglo-Saxons at the Battle of Hastings? What was the effects of Okinawa's colonization by Satsuma domain with China and the trade? You can't fucking market that as a thing to like, I don't know, you can't. But you can market fucking
I think
fucking iPod.
I think a short way to put it is that science is a lot sexier than history. It's a lot easier to make it look sexy and pretty. Because it's like, what do you think of science? You think of chemicals and like explosions and rockets and physics, and you think of like Marvel superheroes, and like Iron Man.
And when you think of history, you think of a dusty ass library where some guy in a fucking tweed jacket's like scrolling over different documents, which is like, it's not
when really you should be thinking. See, the thing you should be thinking of is reading stuff of Anglo-Saxon writers complaining about how handsome the Vikings are and how all the Anglo-Saxon women are going to the Vikings because they're so pretty.
Exactly. It's like, how dare these people bathe every fucking day and comb their hair? Don't they have to work? What the fuck are these lazy bastards doing? Taking baths and combing their hair.
I mean, they don't because they have slaves.
That's true. Yes. People get like.
Well, a lot of them. The rich ones didn't.
Yeah, listen, if you're a Carl or below, you're just a fucking farmer or a serf.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing wrong. Most of us are
just
descended from farmers. There's nothing wrong with farmers. They feed us.
This just makes me think of this is an interesting controversy, which kind of shows, how people kind of talk, because we talked a lot about primary sources and how interpreting in this sort of thing, and this kind of shows how it's really easy to misinterpret these things, is that there was a big kerfuffle when Idris Elba played Heimdall in the Thor movie.
Right.
And a bunch of people, some of them were really right-wing, but there were plenty who weren't, I'm sure.
Yes.
Were pointed to, and I can't remember the exact source, but, Heimdall at some point is referred to as white. And, they're like, Idris Elba can't play him. And I'm like, number one, the Norse gods shapeshift all the time. So,
yeah, dude. If Loki can become a fucking horse to get fucked and create Sleipnir, I don't give a fuck what color you're going to portray him as is in the comics. Yeah. I don't give a fuck how you portray any of these people. Seriously.
I mean, the thing is that it's like, there's never really mention of in any of the sources I can think of like Vikings going, oh, black people are worse. There's like one mention I think of. It might be Bjorn Ironside's journey throughout the Mediterranean.
Yes. Where
he thought he sacked Rome, but it was another city. Right. It was really funny.
Yes.
But where I think they run into, dark-skinned people, and they just mention, oh, they're dark-skinned. That's a little weird, and they just walk through just like, oh, whatever.
Well,
plenty of Norse peoples.
Race wasn't a thing until colonialism. People don't realize that racism is a very young fucking concept.
Yeah,
it's like
true. But
I love the thing of like the idea of Romans. Like, if you're a Roman, you're a fucking Roman. It doesn't matter what skin you are. If you're a Roman citizen, you're a fucking Roman citizen. And if you're not, you're a fucking barbarian. Get your ass out of here. And like, that's how it used to be.
Roman ethnic identity is very interesting. And there's like another point with Heimdall is that because this kind of relates back to our farming and wealth that we were joking about, is that someone describes why it's more of just like you're a beauty thing, and and you're a high class, because if you're white, it means that you're not tanned from working in the sun, which means you're probably wealthy, which means you're probably well off, and you're probably pretty. So it's kind of like, oh, he's a higher class person. Yeah, it's not a racial thing, because that's in fucking Norway.
Yeah, exactly. There's not a lot of sun. There's not a lot of sun there.
There's not. Not that there wasn't people of not just who we would describe as there was non-white.
I'm sure there were swarthy people. I'm sure there were swarthy people there coming from like the south. No question.
Absolutely were.
No question.
Absolutely. Like, especially I think in some of the trading towns, like I think for example Burka, they've found evidence of people who were like definitely were not from the area. And then of course you have the Middle Eastern
like the diplomats from like the various Arab empires.
Scholars. Yeah. There we go. Sorry, I had a brain fart. But yes, visiting, and they visited those towns. So of course, Oh, do you remember? Actually, this kind of leads into another. Right. I'm sorry, I'm kind of going down a rabbit hole.
Dude,
here,
no worries. This is what the podcast is. It's an anarchic rabbit hole of topics.
Yeah. Do you remember there was a Polish game? It was like a medieval. I would have to look up the name, but there was a Polish super realistic medieval game that came out.
The Witcher?
No, not The Witcher, because it was very big on realism.
Right.
But there was a big deal that people made where it's like, oh, all the characters are white, and the developers were like, it's in fucking Poland. I was like, yeah, but there's a lot of people who weren't white, and it's a very weird how people think. I can't remember the name of.
Don't
whatever,
worry.
it doesn't really matter. But
if you find it and you remember it, just let me know, and I will show it on the screen.
Yeah. Yeah, but this perception of medieval period is just like in Europe, it's just so looking like this. Shall we say, and it's just so untrue,
right?
And it's not to say it was diverse, but
well, it's like skin
wasn't super white.
Yeah, it's like you can't say that like everyone was a pale blonde blue-eyed thing until like the Southerners came, and those could be and remember the incrementalization of the idea of whiteness was like basically goes back to, are you Anglo-Saxon white Protestant, and especially in America is the example, if you're
absolutely.
A WASP. But no, fuck no, most people were farmers. Most people fucking were out there. Most people were swarthy as hell because they're fucking working their ass off to be able to not starve to death.
Yeah.
And then if you were a rich person, you had a little bit of light color.
Yeah.
I mean, these are generalizations.
It's funny, though, to me, because with medieval films and stuff, that's, racist and issue. But it's also like, I think about how medieval people are like portrayed.
Right.
And this is a thing where I've ranted about this so much to poor Nick here, but
yes, he has.
Which is clothing. Because I can't understand why in Hollywood films they put everyone in like brown and leather and black, and these people wear all these bright colors, and it's like they had dye. Dye was invented a really long time ago. Yep. Medieval people knew what dye was, and it's this kind of this description of them as like these kind of dirty and stupid and all, these sorts of people, and it's like, no, they're just trying to survive.
I would say,
and I
take a medieval peasant, put them in like contemporary times, give them a computer, explain how it works, and tell them how like the world has become. They can fucking operate in our society if you teach them how to read and write. No question.
Yeah.
They're not dumb.
I think there was actually some research I need to look at it on medieval peasants and like reading and writing.
Right.
Look into that. But and then we have the depictions of all these modern actors in films where it's the higher up people, and I'm like, why do we make them all so nice? These people are assholes.
Oh yeah.
Like, do you remember The King on Netflix? Have you seen that?
The King. What's it about? I don't think I have.
So it's about it's been a while since I've seen it, so I can't remember which English king it's about exactly, because that's not my area of expertise. It's like it's about an English king, and he's made out to be this super nice guy, and he's like he ends up invading. In the film, he's basically betrayed and basically is kind of tricked into invading France.
So and
it's like, no. Yeah, that might be. It's one of the Henrys.
I've been reading a lot about like the Plantagenets in the last couple months.
Yeah, but and it's in the film. He's like the super nice guy who's like, oh, I'm a reluctant king, and I only invaded because I was strict. And the actual one, before his father even passed away as a prince, he's like, invade France, invade. And I'm like, it's okay for these people to be assholes. They're kings. Most of them are assholes.
I think people just like the romanticization. They don't want the real shit, because if they did, they'd be like, oh, fuck.
I mean, you say that, but Game of Thrones was so popular. I think it's...
Yeah, well, that's...
I think it just has to be done right.
Right. A great example of a thing that showed, like, aristocracy being, like, as shitty as they probably really are is there's this movie... There's... Yeah, let's all be real. If you're a part of an aristocracy, if you're like a lord or a earl or some other fucking rigmarole thing, I'm glad I'm an American because I don't have a fucking title. Or like I'm like, oh, you're a fucking yeoman. But nevertheless, it was this comedy about like I think it was like Elizabethan England, and it like showed the fucking display of these people as just fucking idiot assholes. Let me look it up. I'm sure I'll find it, and we'll see it here. Let's see, comedic movies about.
I'm gonna look up the name of that game too.
Oh, absolutely. Royal Family. I'm sure it'll be like the first one here. Nope, that's not it. Oh, here it is. Here it is. It's The Favorite. So it's a period black comedy, and yep, there you go. It's the relationship between Queen Anne and like some duchesses and like a commoner, and like the fighting in the court. And basically, it shows the royal family as or all like aristocracy is just like pompous fucking dickheads who don't know what the fuck they're doing as they live in their opulence. Which 9 times out of 10 is true.
Yeah. Not always, but majority of the time.
Yeah. Not everyone is fucking Aragorn, fucking King Elisar, whatever the fuck of Gondor. You know, he's not a noble figure. Who knows? Sauron might have been the good guy here by trying to advance technology because he was a fucking progressionist. You never know. Perspectives matter, guys. In fact, there's actually a Russian novel explaining why Sauron and his guys were the good guys, and that Gandalf was the head of like all the people of the West have lighter skin and are good, and we're keeping the old traditions alive, and you don't want to fuck up that order. So, you should read it. It's a fucking good thing. It's made by like a Russian guy and like towards the end of the Soviet Union. It's really fucking interesting. Yeah.
You know, by the way, the game I was thinking of that had the controversy over the characters being the majority of the characters being white was Kingdom Come Deliverance.
Okay, I'll show that to our patrons watching the Kingdom Come. There you go. It's the first one on the link. Kingdom Come Deliverance.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the game.
Yeah, this looks like it's interesting. There you go.
It was a cool game, honestly, but that whole controversy left a bad taste in my mouth. So
yeah, well, I mean, like, what in today's globalized, internationalized, and like, let's be honest, toxic internet culture society isn't like fucked over.
Yeah, that's true.
But
the thing I wanted, we've kind of been going down the rabbit hole of like history of media though, and I was curious about, because I've been thinking about, because I used to be very big on like, oh, every detail in the historical film has to be correct, and the kind of direction I've headed instead was more of like authenticity.
Right.
Like an actual representation of history I actually really like, which is kind of funny, which is Ghost of Tsushima. Now, that game is more of a representation of Japanese film. If that's where it's more influenced by.
It's very Kurosawa-esque. It's a love letter to Kurosawa.
Yeah. Exactly, but I feel like it's actually very authentic in a lot of ways.
Oh, no
question.
I
think it represents. It's a dramatization.
Yes.
But it actually, I feel, represents Japanese culture really well. And it's funny because a lot of the armor and equipment isn't correct, but some of like, for example, there's a couple different armors that your characters can wear, and all the armor sets, I'm like, this actually is really good. Like, wrong period. But it's a game.
It's accurate.
But
it's accurate.
The armor is actually really good.
Yeah. But I completely feel you there. There's a big controversy in Japan from Japanese developers saying, why the fuck was this made outside of Japan? Because this is more accurate to our historical culture than our country makes.
I remember hearing that.
And that...
Yeah.
Well, on one hand, that's wonderful because it means there's more... cross-cultural understanding of how like things operate in different things that you're not familiar with, and that's wonderful. But at the same time, it's like it
opens up things. Yeah, it is, and it opens up things for future games like that for Japanese developers because they're like, oh, this is literally our past. We can do this. They can now. Then they know it's lucrative.
Yes.
Because it's funny. The two other games that jump to mind, one is going to be a bit weird sounding, but God of War, the new God of War. I actually really like that because they take they don't, it's not, taking the mythology and doing it right. It's doing their own thing with it, but they treat it very well and very respectfully.
Yes.
That's how I like games.
Like, I think a great portrayal is the idea of Thor in Norse mythology versus Thor, the popularized image of him from Marvel Comics and the MCU.
Yes.
Thor was a crazy, hot-headed, red-bearded motherfucker who was bulging with muscles. He was the lampoon of toxic masculinity in Norse mythology. And they make him like fucking a beach body god who's played by an Australian guy.
Love Chris Hemsworth. Chris Hemsworth though. I do
fantastic
like
actor.
Marvel Thor.
I love him too. Yes. I love his character. He's fucking Taika Waititi's portrayal of him Onward is fan-fucking-tastic, making it comedic.
Agreed.
But
agreed.
Not accurate to the Thor of what people believe him to be. No.
Not even close.
Again, he's a romanticized version of Thor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But
it's like that meme.
With God of War, what I really like is so many of the myth things are, as you kind of point out, are like twisted.
Right.
But they're accurate somehow. I don't know. They did a really good job with the storytelling of that game.
Speaking of that, there's this wonderful video essay I saw doing a deep dive into it. And the reason why the universe in the God of War version of the Norse pantheistic purview is because Loki is the child of Kratos and he didn't exist, so the myths had to happen completely differently. Loki is a great if you read Norse mythology, Loki is the catalyst. That is his archetype of he makes shit happen. How it will happen? Oh, it's fucking crazy, but it's gonna happen.
I'm gonna fuck a horse.
No. I'm gonna get fucked by a horse.
I'm gonna get fucked by a horse. You're right.
Exactly.
You're right.
I get fucked by a horse. I'm gonna do a prank. I'm gonna shave Thor's wife's head off. It's like, I'm gonna fucking kill you if you don't get shit done. Oh, that's how we get Mjolnir. That's how we get Gungnir. That's how we get Draupnir. That's how we get Sif's golden hair. That's how we get a lot of shit that people associate with the gods is because Loki fucking played a prank.
The Freyr's tiny boat he could put in his pocket.
That's true. Basically. And he got I was like, Freyr's, I love Freyr. Freyr is one of my favorite deities. He's not talked about enough.
He's a cool god. Very interesting.
Listen, you gotta love a
portrayal. There isn't enough references in him in the sources, unfortunately. He's it's really sad because with Viking mythology, we just have, there's a bunch of the gods who seem really important. I think it's Uller, I can't remember, there was an analysis of place names, and different gods are really popular in different places. Odin was really common in place names in Denmark, and then Thor was really common in place names in Norway and Iceland.
Yeah, Freyr is extremely popular, probably as Ing in Sweden, right?
Yeah,
Here's the thing: is that remember
there's gods. Go ahead.
Remember how we talked about in the beginning of the podcast of bias? We get all our information from a biased Christian chieftain named Snorri Sturluson, who he's 100 years after, so probably some people were secretly doing their hearth cult inside their house. But that's not an accurate portrayal of what these people actually believe, guys.
The good thing is when it comes to, because there's a lot, there's just so much drama over how accurate are the sagas.
Yeah.
But the thing that we can kind of rely on reasonably is when we analyze is poetry, because for those who don't know, poetry, because of the nature of it, and you have to build it in a certain way, is a lot more resistant to being changed than just regular text, regular prose.
Yeah.
So we do have actual poetry from the period. So that's if someone's ever interested in mythology, and you really want to actually read stuff written by the people there, you go to the poetry. Now, that's really difficult to understand, but most of the information we get from mythology is really from the poetry. We go to Snorri and the other sagas for kind of contextualize and understand it better, but at the end of the day, most of it's from the poetry.
Yeah, I think one of the great examples of poetic understanding of how those people operate is Eagle Saga, and the fact there are so many different poems that were composed by Eagle Skallagrimsson. I've let's see, if you give me 1 second.
You're good. Yes. It's a good one. That's a good one. I have them spread out between them.
Sam hyping it up years ago got me into this when I got back to America, guys. It's ridiculous.
I got
a whole little corner of my room dedicated to this shit.
I got Njal Saga with me right here.
Very nice.
Have you read Njal Saga?
I know, but I need to get around to it. There's a couple of things. One. I mean, that could get into another conversation because we could get into like heathenry and like like Germanic paganism and shit, and like neo-paganism, whatever. But yeah, dude, I think shit's interesting, and I've started writing poetry myself, which people who follow me on my Instagram know I post poems, and I really like to learn how to do skaldic prose. But fuck me if I'll learn kennings. I don't know if I can fucking learn a kenning. There's too many fucking kennings.
I mean, there's actually, I think in the Prose Edda, there's a one point where Snorri just lists a bunch of kennings.
Really?
So that's because the Prose Edda was literally, it depends. I think it might depend on your translation, but you have to remember that the Prose Edda, the reason why Snorri wrote it in the first place was really to teach people how to write the poetry.
Right.
He wasn't into paganism, but he was like, this poetry is so badass.
Yeah.
That we gotta preserve it, and people should know how to write it.
Absolutely.
So it's more of like a guide to poetry,
right?
But to understand the poetry, you have to know the mythology, which is why he wrote about it.
Well, there you go. I have, I think,
you know what?
Caroline Caroline Lingington. I have one of her translations.
Larrington.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you have a better one, I would love to take it. Because I really would appreciate getting some fucking kennings. No, she's good? Okay, and I'm glad I got it.
Yeah, Larrington's good. She's one of the... There's a lot of the sagas that haven't been translated since, like, the 20th century. Right. Some, like, the 60s or the 70s and this sort of thing.
Right.
Like, there's some translations, the latest translation you can find is by fucking Tolkien. Because if they're public access anyway.
Right.
Or you could be like me and have a friend who can translate it for you if you ever need it.
Yeah, hook me up, man. I need those translated. If you need Japanese text, let me know. If I need Norwegian or
I got you.
Norse text, I'll ask you. I do.
Yeah.
I come to Sam a lot because he's very interested in I'm also reading about the Celts at the present, and he's like, "Here's 3 books, man.
Mm-hmm.
Here you go. Get these fucking things."
I loved Celtic stuff when I was younger. I really loved studying it, but I went away from it. I found the Viking stuff more interesting because there was a lot more written sources that I enjoyed more.
Right.
But I mean, there's that whole thing of that we talked about a little bit of like, are the Celts an actual grouping, or is it an invention by the Romans and modern people?
I think it was like I think we both agree that it was just like a shared material culture over an area, pretty much, right?
Maybe.
Again, we don't know. The only piece, going back to bias, we only know about them because some guy named Julius Caesar said, I'm gonna fucking write about these guys I'm fighting, and I'm not gonna write nice things. There's a reason why.
I mean, a lot of people, I think, would react to our discussion of bias and just be like, "Oh, but what about archaeology? It's just the objects and people."
Yeah, but that doesn't tell us about the fucking people.
Well, that's not it. But it's also because of, number one, you have to think about dead people don't bury themselves. The people who die get buried by other people. Yeah. They are the ones who decide what gets in the grave.
Right.
So there can be things like in a child's grave in the Viking Age, you might find a weapon, but this person is like 1.5 years old. They can't use a sword.
Right.
But so, this might be of ritual significance, but you have to keep that in mind when you're looking at, for example, grave depositions.
Right.
And you also have to think about how archaeologists are biased. There's a huge, one of the biggest debates right now, at least from my understanding, is women warriors. That's a huge thing on the internet. It's a huge thing in the archaeological community and the Viking history kind of academia.
Right.
Though they're a lot nicer about it than on the internet. But it's like, for example, there was a Viking warrior who used to be thought to be male, but there was new analysis and they realized she was female.
Right.
And they had a bunch of weapons buried with her and things, and she's probably a warrior. Probably, there's debate, of course.
Right.
But it's examples like that where it was because of the bias when this person was taken out of their grave and examined. It was thought to be a male because it was like, there's no way
No way a woman is
yeah,
going to
buried
go
with
off
this.
and fucking fight and have all these weapons. It just doesn't make sense because
Yeah.
insert probably a male-dominated, like,
Yes,
like this, yeah.
exactly. So, it's one of those things where the nice thing about objects is that it removes that kind of other interpretation of that person where you're trying to read it from the filter and you're just looking at the object.
Right.
So, which means that you don't have something to bounce off of, who is an individual who's written their words and leaving it for you.
Right.
But it also means that, there's a lot more broad interpretations you can do.
Yeah.
And in my experience from like archaeology and the little bit I've read and kind of studying, hung out, people do is that they're a lot more willing to make, leaps.
Right.
Not so much in logic, but kind of like, we think this is history. We're like, there's a little more willingness there because of the things that they deal with. Really, archaeology and history are brothers, but
yeah, I mean, they're two sides of the same desire to find out about the past. Just one is physical objects, the other is writing.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of difficulty too with people trying to line up, like, for example, kingdoms with ethnicities with material goods.
Yeah.
There was I wish I had this image with me, but I don't have it. Mm-hmm. But I was taking a course and I had a professor who I won't name, but I wasn't a big fan of his, but he made a really good point.
Right.
Where he showed us like different areas ruled by different peoples, and then he shows material cultures, and material cultures would be like, this, like, I don't know, Brooch or whatever is like here and then here, and it's in like 3 different kingdoms,
right,
some of whom don't seem very related.
Right.
So it's I think that we have to be careful. This is why I'm not big on like the Celt thing.
Right.
With lining up material culture with ethnic group, that would be it's a material culture. It's not we identify because we share this, how this Brooch is made.
Right.
And I see that a lot with how people kind of classify ancient peoples, at least in the popular sense. I think that used to be an issue, not really anymore, at least in the States so much. I think in some other countries, it's still an issue in academia that they...
Well, that's the thing is that people... I don't think a lot of people realize this, but the United States academic system, despite being, again, a conservative industry of thought and process, is one of the more, if not the most progressive in thinking of historiography and how we think about history moving forward. Compared to, like, you were saying, for example, that facts are facts and you got to take this interpretation when you were in Norway among some of your professors. Where I'm sure that if you had studied the same class with someone in America, they'd be like, we can have a little debate, we can think about it and expand upon the idea and think of different aspects. And that's the same thing I saw when I was in Japan. It's very much more rote. It's very much more do this thing. And I took my approach of American writing of history in a Japanese history class that I took there, and just like, this is incredible. And I was like, this is shit I'd churn out in a fucking hour for like a 1 week discussion thing.
Yeah.
And I was.
I think in Norway it wasn't so much. I actually think it was more about conversation, but it felt for me it was much more about, there was a lot less questions being asked and more, what's your interpretation? It was more independent work.
Right.
But it was also like, it didn't feel as open.
Right.
It felt a lot more, there wasn't any question of the philosophy of history. It's like, basically is what I found.
Oh, interesting.
Though I really enjoyed those courses. It was basically like there was pros and cons to each, because I think that I prefer how people are tested in the American universities. Mm-hmm. And I think that on average, I actually, this is only a single European university. It's not representative at all.
Right.
But I think I had better professors at UCSB than I did in Oslo. Mm-hmm. But that might be because I felt that at Oslo, there was a lot less openness among professors to like, oh, come to office hours. So that might be like a cultural thing for me that, that wasn't true for all professors though. Like I had a professor of runology who I only know her first name.
What are you studying under? Stephen Flowers over here?
Oh, fuck that.
I know, right?
No, fuck that shit.
I'm joking, of course. It's just you brought up runology. But that's really a cool topic.
You should explain that.
Okay.
You should explain that very quickly, why we're saying fuck Steve Flowers.
Okay.
Even though he was good at first.
Okay, so, long story short, guys, in the development of the study of runology in America, there was a very prominent academic out of Texas known as Stephen Flowers. He was very influential in the American Neo-Germanic Paganist institution. For example, he was a co-founder of the organization currently known as the Troth, which is a inclusive heathen organization, heathen being a term used by people who practice this new age faith. Nevertheless, the guy ended to turn out to be a traditionalist in the vein of, well, there's an image that you know. It's very American History X. They're Nazis. The organization that comes to mind is the Asatru Folk Assembly, the AFA, which is literally whites for whites. This is our religion based on our blood and culture bullshit. And his books under the name Edward Thorson, because this guy did a fuck ton of publishing under a bunch of pseudonyms in different topics, but his real name is Stephen Flowers. Haha, funny last name. Anyway, all of the books under his publication, are owned by that racist organization. So don't buy his fucking books. If you can, pirate it. But I would say a great resource to break out of using his methods of study in his early days is to look at something like Diana Paxson's Taking Up the Runes. Because she's a part of the Troth currently, she is a practitioner of this faith, and she is not a racist. She's an inclusive person. And she builds on what he did with other stuff. But yeah, that's why I'm insulting Stephen Flowers, because racism sucks. Declaration, I don't fucking know. Is it 137? I disavow the AFA. It's something like that. Yeah, I'm totally a part of that. For that shit, and fuck them. And then some leftist and more inclusive Neo-Germanic paganism practitioners, such as Ocean Keltoy and Wolf the Red, and Beafeld of The Wind in the World Tree, have just created a declaration of deeds which completely disavows any sort of racist activity whatsoever based on your actions. Which, go check it out. They're actually some of the people I follow for my polytheistic faith that I'm currently been taking up, because when I went to Japan, I found an interest in polytheism because Shinto is a major religion there. As you can see, I have a little Shinto shrine right up here. I have my Kamidana. And then actually I have a little heathen shrine over here. I like to say I'm Germanic pagan because fuck any other association of identity. I just like the broad term. And anyone can do it. It's polytheism, guys. Any god works. Any fucking god works. You can worship anything. It's polytheism. That's what they did. Just depends on the context. Look at the Romans. They worshipped everything. And they just said, oh, they're just worshiping a different aspect of this thing in a different name. But back to the topic at hand. You were talking about your runology professor.
Sorry. I was I'm looking for her name because I feel bad because she was like very, very open, very kind. She was always, very friendly.
That's cool.
That wasn't the norm. It was funny. She checked in when I went to the I actually didn't do very well in her runology class, but again, that was in the last semester where I was just like,
right. You were dead.
There's her name.
All right, what's her name?
But let me make sure this is her. Yeah, that's her. But all
right, yeah.
She was she actually talked about. I'll just message you what it is. But right. She did a lot of stuff with she did like a paper on like how technical difficulties.
Yeah, no worries. I will show this professor's name, who is very genuine and kind to my friend here. I will look her up on the old Google. But yes, you were saying.
She's advised on a bunch of stuff. She's she answers questions all the time in like her email and things. But she was a good example of like the type of more American almost style.
So she had professor. A more like American style open engagement with the students kind of thing going on.
Yeah. Like I could talk to her, I feel like I could talk to her after class and she would be really excited, down for that.
Right.
Like, for those who haven't gone to uni yet, where it's a really big thing at least for SB, may not be true for all unis, but
right.
to go to office hours where you're talking with the professor individually, I didn't really get that feeling in Norway.
Hey man,
It was kind of a lot harder to set up.
I got that feeling at community college in the sense, like I had a wonderful relationship with a couple of my professors at community college. Ugh, good time. Actually, one person I was telling Sam about in the past was probably one of, if not my mentor professor from community college, Toshio Welchel. And it was Sam was telling me he was very interested in like the rise of like fascistic tendencies, especially, which it's interesting now, given what time we live in. But yeah, and he specialized that in like the German and Italian fascistic context, which I think I still need to send you his book link.
You do.
Which, there we go. I will be sending that probably. I'll do it on my iPad, which I have over here to the side, because I don't want to kind of like link into like social media right now. But yeah, very interesting. Anyway.
Yeah, but just to very quickly go back to my runology professor thing, I wanted to mention is that, but any of the stuff she's done is really great. So if you could find anything by her, she's awesome.
There you
go.
But
a funny story. This is a fun story. It's just a fun anecdote where she walked into one class one day and she looked kind of excited. She's like, "Guys, okay, I'm going to tell you something. I'm not supposed to. Just don't tell anyone." We're like, "Huh?" She's like, "Okay, we've probably found a runestone. It looks really cool." And she was talking about it, and she's like, "But you can't tell anyone because we haven't released it yet, and we don't want it to get stolen." So, and then like the next week, the article came out with her talking about it on the news, and I was like, "That was so cool." You found that runestone.
Dude, it does feel cool when you like someone you've actually engaged with is like, they're published in the news. Like, whoa!
It's fucking wonderful. It's really weird. That's like speaking of office hours stuff.
Right.
There was a professor I had, Professor Keel. He was a Black Studies professor, and he was like went to Harvard, super well put together professor, very serious. But like my last office hours with him, he was like, "Yeah, I enjoy talking with you," and I'm like, my heart, my confidence just rose by a level. And it was just
I understand.
Dude, that course though, he did a course on religion and science, and every single time I left his lectures, my head hurt because he blew up my brain so much.
I love when you just gel with the professor. Guys, when you go to uni, or if you're going to a community college, education beyond high school, and if you build a rapport with a professor, that person's going to have your back and like getting jobs. You'd be like, "Hey, can I get a reference letter?" It's like, "Fuck yeah, dude, here you go." And two, they have some genuinely interesting shit to talk about, not just about their topics, but just like about life.
Very
interesting.
Yeah. I mean, and it's the other thing that's useful too is that you can go to them for advice with classes and things. So if you're like, "Oh, I'm not sure if I want to do," especially if anyone's interested in going to academia, talk to college, and you're going to uni, talk to your professors.
Yes.
Because they will not filter things about how academia is, and if you want to do that, because I think this is true for both you and me, Nick, that we were thinking about going to academia, and then we went and talked to our professors, and we were like, "Never mind."
I'm still somewhat discovering it, but honestly, I'm thinking about going into a completely different field of study from what I was studying, no question. But yeah, I know. I don't know. Yeah, it's weird. It's like do take my advice. Don't do this shit. That's literally like their advice was usually.
I got told that by numerous professors.
Yeah.
I had a religious studies professor who I really liked, who her advice was, if you want to do upper education, but you're not sure about going to your PhD, just do a master's. She's like, master's is just fun because you get to do the PhD thing without so much stress.
Right.
And she was like, PhD sucks. So it's basically what she told me.
That's literally the route I was going to do. A lot of people,
it's like,
that's literally the route I was going to do. I was like,
it's basically what people have told me. It's like,
it's only a year, guys. It's only a year. A PhD can take up to 5 years.
Yeah. Master's is like 1 to 2 years, maybe 3 if you take it really slow.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. If you like taking your time, like the slow lane, go for a master's. You won't want to shoot yourself by that.
I mean, yeah.
I've heard horror stories, man. I literally okay.
Oh,
I have a tangent. If we can go on this.
Go.
So, during my last year at UCSB, there was this guy who was the TA of my thing. He was a PhD student, right? And one of my last courses. I remember this. Yeah, right. So, when I actually went to Japan to work, like over the last year and the year prior, I met up with him, and he was just like, I couldn't just finish it. I was fucking done. I couldn't continue this PhD bullshit. And he literally moved to Japan without finishing his PhD just to get a regular job somewhere. Because, the dude spoke very good English, Japanese, and he was fucking great. Wonderful man, wonderful person, really cool. Great guy to have fucking, what is the thing where you're cooking the meat? It's like on Korean barbecue. Great guy to have Korean barbecue. That's like the time I hung out with him. But oh man, the way he talked about it was just a fucking burnout, and I couldn't finish it, man. It was horrible. It was horrible.
Yeah.
It's like, watch that doctorate. Be careful. Danger.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with PhDs that I hear a lot is that you not only have to be good at academia, but you have to be good at networking, and you have to be good at politicking. Because there's a lot of interdepartmental drama, politics, bullshit.
Right.
Like, my friend who's working in... Why do I always say she's working at fucking Cambridge? She's studying there. Oh, my God. But,
it is a form of labor.
Who's studying in Cambridge is really good at all of that.
Right.
She's so good at all of that. And you got to have all of that, and you got to be tough as nails. Because it's...
I hear you, man. It's wild. See... Here's the thing. If you want to be a lecturer and you don't want to be like a person, okay. Professors have obligations with their publishers to publish shit continuously and to keep them in their thing. If you want to be a lecturer, which is something I wanted to do, all you have to do is get a master's. And then you can just jabber on about shit and then maybe publish something every once in a while. You don't have a constant breathing down into your neck of, when's your fucking document, man? When's your fucking thing? We need to edit this shit. Got to get it out soon. It's like, fuck. Leave me alone. No.
Yeah. I think one of the difficulties though with like wanting to do that sort of thing is now that so many people get degrees, people want you to get a PhD now for lecturers. Like that's kind of more in demand now.
Oh, I believe.
But you can still get with a master's, but like with public history, where I want to go to, it's still like a master's, but now you could get a PhD. Like we'll see if I do that, but I prefer not to.
They continue to raise the fucking bar on the professional level. It's like, oh shit,
they do.
Everyone's getting fucking degrees now. Oh, let's make it a master. It's like the classic thing. I was like, all right, you just graduated college. You'll be able to get a nice professional job at like a firm somewhere. It's like, yeah, we need you to have a master's, 12 years of experience. We need you to have like this in this field and this in this field. And it's like, what?
The problem of our generation.
Literally, it's like we're so educated that we fucked ourselves.
I mean, how you do it now is through connections. This is why it's also good to talk with your professors and I won't say suck up to them, but get along with some of them if you can.
Right.
Is to have those connections, because those connections will save your ass. So especially when the other thing is to do like internships. So I'm lucky because like what I want to do, you do an internship at your master's. Like it's just required.
Right.
So, but these sorts of that, or working at some sort of museum, volunteering there, these sorts of things are what's valuable now.
Right.
Or, for example, I'm part of a reenactment group, though we haven't done anything in a long time. I haven't talked to them in a long while because
of reasons that makes sense.
Surviving quarantine.
Right.
But it was like the Vikings of Bjornstad, that's what they're called. These reenactment groups, these sorts of extracurricular sort of, or not necessarily extracurricular, I can speak, things, but these things on the side are what make you look good now. GPA and all that is important, but at the end of the day, someone who has a not great GPA compared to someone who has done and gone reenactment stuff, they'll be more interested in that.
Well, yeah, it's like it's a pull. I have diverse set of interests in like Japanese cultural arts, so like I like watching plays. I like learning about the history of these plays, like thing like that, and like music and stuff and the traditional shit like that. That would be more likely to get me into a master's program than say, oh yeah, I studied this stuff for this time, and then I went over there, and then I didn't really do anything about it, and then did this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Being a well-rounded human is good for being a part of society, guys.
Yes. Our not to bring up Roberts again, but he gave advice that everyone who wants to do upper level school beyond bachelor's should go and work for a year, because that'll make you look so much better that you've worked just any work experience whatsoever.
Yes. And that's kind of what I did. I mean, you know what I did, so it's just like I literally did that because I was thinking, I'm gonna go into Japanese studies and like as a master's. So I went to just like, fuck, I gotta find a job in Japan, work there for maybe a year, and then, fuck, that was exhausting. Japanese work culture is fucking ridiculous. And I was white person.
Yeah.
I guess white person. I was an outsider. I was a gaijin.
Yeah.
Which means your workload is easier, and so it was just. It's like first 3 months, I felt like I was like being ridden and whipped on my back to get shit done. And I'm a horrible salesman too. It's just not my scene. My brother, he could sell a piece of dried shit to a fucking millionaire by saying it's like some special rare thing. Me, I couldn't sell you a stick if you needed to make a fire.
Yeah, that's me too.
I'm just not driven by money enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay, guys. There are introverts and other types of people out there who just don't get the profit margin. It's fine. There are a lot of us. We're just all hidden in our homes, and now everyone else has to live our lives like we do.
Evil laugh.
Yeah.
But, so I kind of, a last thing that came to mind that I thought, now that we've gone on a bunch of little tangents, is what our favorite historical areas would be and why.
Oh, okay.
I kind of think I know what yours is, but I'd be curious as to the why. Why, your this particular area over anything.
Okay. Long story made short. Sam knows this about me. I enjoy East Asian history, and my emphasis is on Japanese history. It's not surprising. Look at my fucking wall behind me.
But he's a weeb. No, okay, he's not.
I have evolved beyond a weeb because I fucking can criticize Japan, and I know there's a lot fucking wrong with it. I don't think it's fucking heaven on earth, man.
Yep.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So the reason I got into it was because of the pop culture getting me in. This pushed me into actual study of the culture and the studies. The history became interesting. Actually, nowadays, I'm more interested in the cross-cultural dynamic of East Asian civilizations with each other, like trading and engagement with each other, like... I think one of the areas of study that we could learn about more is that, Japan... Oh, Sakoku, it was closed to the world. Fuck no, it wasn't. Japan had 4 distinct ports of trade with the outside world. They were trading with the Ainu in the north, and that made trade with Russia. They traded with Korea on Tsushima. You guys remember that game Ghost of Tsushima? That was a major port for trade with Korea. In Okinawa, it was called the Ryukyu Islands, and that was trade with fucking China. And lastly, there was Nagasaki, which everyone knows. They were trading with the Dutch. Guys, it was never closed. It was never closed.
Yep.
But I think that shit, like, I'm really getting pushed towards, if I can go on a tangent before we get to your choice.
Feel free. Feel free.
I think engagement of cross-cultural society and, like, policy is extremely interesting. And I've been told by people who work in Washington, one of my training mates was an intern in various think tanks. And he said, Nick, you could easily apply for like a think tank and like a liberal frame set and like cross-cultural trade, and I'm sure they'd hire you. And I was like, fuck. And then, now my relatives are pushing me to like, especially my mom's like, you're smart. You know what you're talking about. You should fucking work for a think tank. I was like, do I really want to do that? I mean, it'd be good for my pocketbook.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be. I don't know. Anyway.
See, this is the thing. This is what I'm thinking. For me, it's like I'm pretty much gonna be. My main thing is wanting to be able to use my skills that I learned from my education. Yeah. And for me, it's like, I'd be willing, for example, to work for like a business because then I get experience and then I can do what I want later. Yeah. And I'm using my skills at least. I'm willing to do that.
Yes.
So, but it is that question of can you deal with it? But,
it's balance. Balance is the thing in life. It's like you can't have too much of one side or the other else you get bogged down in it. If you're too relaxed and too easygoing and too living at home and not getting out and doing something, you're just going to be a lump on a log and on your couch. And if you're too busy, you're going to burn yourself out. So you have to have that balance in a lot of things. Now, I've said my piece. I want to give the rest to you, my friend. Your study and why.
Oh my God. It's Vikings. Well, I've been talking about Vikings so much. Well, technically it'd be Norse. Technically it's Norse people because Viking probably is pirates, basically.
We all know
so there's a lot
Viking is a verb. Vikinger is the person who goes out Viking.
It's yeah. There's a lot of debate about what actually means. It might refer to an inlet. It might refer to a certain place.
Yeah.
It might refer to piracy. There's a lot of questions what actually means, but
Yes.
basically means the general meaning is basically going out and raiding and taking
shit,
slaves and wealth. Yeah, pretty much. I think for me, like, it's just this period that's so due to this, the writings we have, these kind of larger than life figures, but so many of them, I'm like, this is like not super far off from the truth for some of them. Like Ego, for example, he was a real person.
Yep.
Highly dramatized in the sagas, but he was a real person.
Mm-hmm.
And many of these poems are believed to be written by him. That's just, and then we have all this wonderful, mythology, this interesting religious beliefs they have, and this cool material culture, and this kind of fascinating rapid change of their society in this period.
This is something I've been casually getting cool very much into.
So.
Sam's interest in this and his like okay guys, if you were to meet Sam in real life, once you get him going on a topic, he will not shut up about it.
Oh God.
And
I've gotten better, I swear.
No, it's fine, because now at this point I'm invested in that shit by proxy of him being extremely invested in this. And I think
this is what I do. I infect people.
This is the vice versa, because he knows I'm really into Japanese shit, and then he got kind of into Japanese shit.
I did, yeah.
So there you go. People influence people.
We infect each other.
Yes,
it's a mutual disease.
It's a passion.
Unlike COVID.
It fucking spreads. Anyway, there you go. Is there any period of is there any period of influence or part of that form of studies that you really find intriguing at all? What's the thing that's drawing you right now to it?
I think I've actually taken a break recently because I've been studying, the rise of fascism stuff, and taking a history break because I studied for with community college. I was studying history for 7 years, so I needed a freaking break.
Yeah, you needed a detox.
I need a little detox. But I think for me the biggest thing is just the mythology.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the biggest thing for me is the mythology, but also just the kind of I would say that this kind of interesting quality of this society where it was, this it's really hard to describe for me outside mythology, because that's the biggest thing, but it's these people who were so human, but at the same time are, seem so not because that's kind of why one of the fun things about history is studying these people who are wow, I can really relate to that, but that can't relate to that at all, Yeah. So it's just, for me, the Viking period just represents that really well, because it's just in the things that were kind of written down, and also just the material culture, and finding all these really wonderful materials they've left behind.
Yes.
So just really interesting people.
For sure. I think there you go. That's fantastic. A couple of a year ago, I think one of the things that was really intriguing me was religious syncretism in Japan. Getting back into that topic, it's related to our the first class we met into, and it's interesting to see the diversity that happened there, and applying that now to not just Japan but other cultures. That's kind of been one of my fixes with the interest in the northern peoples.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's funny because I feel both the areas we're interested in get misused so much.
Oh.
Japanese culture gets misused so goddamn much.
Yeah.
And then you have the crazy, right-wing people are just...
Oh my God, right-wing people think...
I say extreme right-wing people.
Extremely right-wing people think Japan is the most fucking perfect society, and it's not. And they think we got to make this shit exactly the way it is for this. It's guys, they're a dying civilization. Because one, it's too fucking expensive to have kids. And two, they really, 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 one more, really don't want people to come into their country long term.
Yeah.
It's bad.
I love it. In the States,
bad.
we have This so an interesting story.
Yeah.
When I was at this academic conference, was there was a, funnily enough, in frickin' Norway,
yes,
and a Viking academic conference, was a guy from California who was a community college professor who worked with people who were in prison. Mm-hmm. And he was doing a paper on, I believe it was something on like Norse mythology or Norse religious beliefs and prisoners and like being radicalized. Mm-hmm. And I could just see, he was talking about it, and I could just see in all these like European, faces, this just, huh? Blinders. And I'm like,
they don't know.
Do you not know that in America,
Oh, yeah.
It was just really interesting to me that it's kind of being stuck up in the ivory tower, that sort of thing, where it's like, they didn't seem to really care. And I'm like, this is your topic. You should care that people are like misrepresenting you. It's a serious issue. People are dying over this shit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. People are getting, part of the way people get radicalized is through this. You should be mad. You should be. There should be people.
They talk about cultural appropriation. That's it, buddy. It's like that meme we see. I love this meme that you shared. Like, it's like what people perceive. It's like it's from that movie about the guy who sings "A Rocket Man." Remember? Where it's like his manager, and then he's dressed. What is it? Gosh, I'm gonna look it up right now. I'm just gonna look up the song, and I'm sure it'll show me who it is, and I'm gonna feel like a total idiot when I
can't remember either.
Okay, that's the film name. Great, fantastic, wonderful. Elton John. Duh. I'm Wagon Meister. Duh, I don't know Elton John. No, but like, and it's just like how people think Norse mythology is, and then it shows Elton John next to him with like a bunch of feathers on, and it's all colorful.
Yes,
and it's like how they actually are in its mythology, and it's like that's what we need to fix.
Yep, it's. I think that's just this kind of these again, the popular imagery of like the History Channel Viking show.
Yep.
Which I will tell you, I cannot tell you how many people in Scandinavia were like, I hate that show, I hate that show, I hate this show, including people who don't even like studying Vikings, are just like, that show's stupid, I hate it. Because it's God. I remember I believe he was Danish, a master student, and I was like reading a saga. He's like, reading the saga, eh? I was like, yeah, I haven't read a lot of them. He's like, yeah, they're really good. And we were talking a little bit about it. I was like, yeah, it's like fucking Vikings. He's like, fuck Vikings, I hate that show. He just got really mad. And it's really funny because Scandinavians are usually really chill. And he was just like...
There you go. All right, so now we have learned, excluding the Finns, if you want to trigger a Scandinavian of Germanic origin, bring up Vikings, the TV show. It's the fire.
Oh my God. Or, no, what you do... What you do is, if you really want to trigger them, what you do is you talk to them. You just walk up and talk to them.
Oh my God, they'll think you're a horrible. They'll think you're a murderer.
Oh yeah.
They really
will.
Appreciate practice,
trust me.
Right? Yeah, there you go. I remember the story.
Oh yeah.
He told me a story about when he was extremely tired from studying. Yes. I'm not going to tell the whole thing, but it is so damn funny.
Okay, it's worth telling.
Okay, tell the story.
It's just
I think people will really like it.
So. In general, in Scandinavia, people are very private, and there's a big thing about, and always kind of looking good, but like casual, and giving each other space. I have two kind of funny stories, but the first one was I was coming back from the library at the uni, and I'm absolutely exhausted, like dead tired, almost asleep on my feet, and I'm like, I look like how I look now, basically, all ruffled and a little smelly because I hadn't taken a shower because I've been working so much. Because I was just so dead. And I go, and probably not, smelly is probably overdramatic, but
right. You were disheveled.
I went and I sit down disheveled, that's a good word for it. But I went in, like, just sat down in one of the little metro seats and was like pretty much trying to sleep. And a group of Norwegians walk in, and I have like half an eye open. And a couple of Norwegian guys come over, and there's no other seats, so they sit down next to me. Because in Norway, if there's any room for you to sit down not next to a person, you do that. But in this case, there's no room.
It's the same way in Japan.
And there was a seat next to me, and there was a seat next to me, and there's like a Norwegian lady who kind of they all sit down, and then the Norwegian just stands up and doesn't sit down next to me. I'm like, whatever, she just won't sit down next to her spare.
Right.
And I see her buddy, and I think they're friends. And kind of, I didn't even need to understand Norwegian to understand this interaction. He kind of looks at her, gestures like there's an open seat, and she goes, "Oh, good." He's like, "What? What's the issue?" And she says something. He kind of and he looks at me, and I'm like, "Oh, apparently she doesn't want to sit next to me." And then he looks at her, looks at me, goes, "What's wrong with him?" And she's like, it's kind of apparently freaked out, weirded out by me, and he's just like, keeps throughout the entire metro ride, is just glancing over at him, me looking back at her, going. Literally, at some point, he started doing this.
Right.
And like gesturing at me. At one point, he literally gets really close to me and does this. Like, he is not doing anything. He is fine. He is sleeping. And at one point, because she is like, so he thinks it's so ridiculous that she's, because he literally leans over and goes over me, trying to spook a child. And then he went, "See, he doesn't give a fuck. He's asleep." And near the end of the trip, because they were getting off the same station I did, I went, pretended like I didn't see anything, took out one of my student textbooks and just flipped through it. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the guy going, that's right here, like, "He's a beleaguered student, you stupid moron."
He's a beleaguered student!
It was so good.
Oh, that's a
It
wonderful
was so good.
The look on her face.
The look on her face was just sheer shock and just, I don't know what. She was too embarrassed to sit down. She didn't like do anything, but the look on her face told me that she was super embarrassed because she realized she just basically thought that this beleaguered university student was like a drug addict or something.
Yeah.
I think that's what she thought I was, but my favorite interaction in Norway showing how much Norwegians don't like talking to people is right. There was like a fruit that someone left behind me in the grocery cart in like a basket, and I picked it up and I was like, and I tapped the guy in front of me. I kind of said, "Excuse me, is this yours?" And he went, like I had just tried to bite him, and I was like, "Okay, jeez," and I just put it back, and I'm just like,
wow,
just
that's a little extreme. That's like funny. A little extreme, but there you go.
That's how I just want to say Norwegians are very warm people. They're very nice, but they like their space. So,
are you telling everyone that you have to break the ice with Norwegians?
Yes, I am, Nick. Thanks for that description of
That's a great pun. That's gold. It's cold there. They have fjords and icicles. Break the ice.
True.
Come on.
They have those.
Okay, at least I got
the
you.
Sad thing is,
you're just
it's
tired.
Accurate. I hate it.
I know. That's why it's wonderful. I hope one Scandinavian person, hopefully they're Danish or Swedish or Icelandic, because then they will laugh because
Norwegian.
I'm just saying, it's because all Scandinavians think the other Scandinavians are goofy as hell. For example, this is true. We all know that Norwegians and Swedes think that Danes sounds like they're speaking their language with a potato in their mouth.
Yes, exactly. That is the thing they're always described as.
Yes. And
I think the stereotypes are Norwegians are stupid, and then Danes are arrogant, Swedes are lazy. I may have switched the lazy and stupid, but I think it's something like that.
And then Icelanders are literally off on their own island, both literally and figuratively.
Yeah, they're just insane. They're weird.
There you go.
Yeah.
Anyway,
when I went to Iceland briefly, Iceland's weird because it's been very Americanized.
Really?
So people are almost Americanish. Oh yeah, there was a Costco in Reykjavik, or however you pronounce that. Sorry,
I think that was right. I think Reykjavik was the what you did it.
But and they were a lot friendlier, but they were still
they got that kind of cat.
Keep my space, but I'm I will talk to you.
Right. I think a great word for
but very Americanized.
Is aloof. Would you say aloof is a good term for them?
Yes, aloof is a good term.
There you go.
Probably the most embarrassed I ever was though in Norway was.
Right.
I was my mom. I was taking my mom because she's in a wheelchair, and we were going around this lake, and there was a Norwegian woman with just her baby in a stroller, just going around enjoying the walk. My mom tried to say hi, and the Norwegian woman kind of just went, Just kept going. My mom, like, as we're going away, my mom says, "Wow, people in Norway are rude." I'm like, "Mom, they speak English, you idiot. You're the one being rude." I got really mad at her.
Well,
because I'm like, oh my god, like literally like 70% of Norwegians or something like that speak English, like the majority.
There you go. Hey, English. It's the global language of the economy. So
yeah.
There you go. Anyway, so how are you feeling? Do you feel like we're kind of gearing towards the end? Do you feel like you want to continue on? I'm just curious.
I think we're kind of near the end.
Okay, so
beginning to, unless there's anything that jumps into your head.
I think that's good. Okay, so let's just get started with the whole wind down cycle. So, any kind of social media you want to share at all, or do you want to keep yourself private?
I'll keep myself private. I'm just gonna hide.
They just know your first name. That's all they know, and that's okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
As for
and my face.
There you go. But hey, if they don't know your last name, they don't know what the hell to look up on social media. So there you go.
It's true.
So that's been it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode. It was very intellectually engaging and on both the philosophy of things and so on, and as well as picking Sam's brain about stuff. If you want to follow the pod, please give me a follow on Twitch if you're watching this on Twitch. If you're on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe on the video and all that, and with my channel. Social media links are down below in descriptions, and with social media links in Twitch as well. I hope you guys liked the episode. It's been a wonderful time. Glad to have you on, Sam. Thank you very much. And with that, I will see you in the next episode of the Guy in a Basement podcast, or in the next recording of my new spin-off podcast, From the Foothills to the Rockies, with one of, if not my longest best friend. He's a great guy, Mr. Garrett Stivers. So thank you very much. I will see you